Taxi! So Dave, we've come out on location. I've upped the budget, stepped it up a little bit. We're here in Miami. You said to me, Dean, go large or go home. Thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for supporting Wizan. Please like, subscribe, comment and hit the notification bell for any future videos.
Well, I thought now that we've got the 6,000 points-ish list,
Yep.
this is going to obviously change me.
I'm not entirely sure that it's a great idea because it gives us a specific target. That's the one thing. So people now have a specific target. They can go out and accomplish something rather than have an ever-growing and ever-changing target, which is a nice in one aspect. But people are very confused with how to approach it. So, like you said, it doesn't change things a great deal. How many points did you learn when you didn't?
I've no idea. Do you know what? I didn't know. I just kept going.
Yeah.
You just keep going. Because why would you put a number on it?
Some people count them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just kept going. I
Like the
just
old-
kept going. It was a quest for information, isn't it? The knowledge is. How to do the knowledge is one of the biggest quests, isn't it? When you're going from blue books and learning points, how to do all those. So don't change a lot, you don't think. Yeah. And the targets, it's all about targets.
You know, what it used to be is, the idea that it used to tell people to study, which was really wrong and not nice, is that you needed to do all your blue book runs and you need to know all your points before you ever went to be tested. And what people learnt was that they could kind of scam that. Knowing everything before you're tested wasn't really necessary. And after a while, TFL actually changed it and changed the way that they did it so that you went for your written test as a entry system to say you're good enough to take appearances. But once you was on appearances, the first appearance was meant to be based around blue book runs start to finish and within a realm of points that would be considered to be, and only us would know that, what would be considered big or large or simple, those kind of points for that first 56. And then, while you're on 56s, you would still generally be tested within a scope of what would be considered to be the bigger points. And when you look at the statistics, so we can just break down the database of it all, on 56s there were about 3,000 different points asked. But yet by the end of 21s there was about 6,000 to 7,000 different points asked. So if you kind of took care of the business end first, you could work your way through and go through your appearances in stages like you should be able to do. So now they brought in this list, people are now kind of wondering, should I complete the whole 6,000 list before I go for an appearance? And I'm going to say no, don't do that. You definitely should. I really think the Wiz Radius app is going to be the best way to go pointing. The Wiz Points app is the way to stay for doing your point to point. But for pointing, use the Wiz Radius app. Set the filter to 100 times asked. And it doesn't matter the span of time because this list of points is all new, but if it's at 100 times asked, you get about 1,500 points that are the biggest points of all time within that list. So rather than, you get these people that say, but if there's a point next to me in that radius, why don't I find that? Well, it might have been asked 7 times. Every point that you find, you have a capacity to retain a certain amount of information. So finding stuff, lots of stuff that's been asked 5 times, 4 times, 7 times, is going to take up space that should have been used by something that's been asked 100 times. So don't bother looking at that yet. First of all, take care of the business end 100 times asked. Once you've done that, knock the filter down to 50 times asked. So you're actually having to go back and do it again. And I know that there's going to be people say, oh, I don't want to go back. You can't drive around London once and get it. This theory just amazes me. The idea that people say, do the runs and do the points together because you've got to go back afterwards. Of course you've got to go back. You don't drive around this stuff once and absorb it. Are you insane?
You'd be a poor cab driver once you got your badge if you've only been around London once. You wouldn't recognise nothing at all, would you? You wouldn't know the ends of the streets or anything. But having going back, as you say, you go back to the area. It's familiarity. It's the same as with your home. What would you go and point your home for? Something you know really, really, really well. Don't bother.
Yeah.
If you had a point, say for instance you had one of these points, let's say Hamleys on a big street like Regent Street, and a new coffee shop or something, a restaurant or whatever it is, pops up, and it's very close. And yet you've done loads of points up Regent Street. Would you go back to look at that?
No,
or
no.
would you wait till you're passing, or what would you do?
I would definitely wait until I was passing to have a look at it to say, oh, there you are. But I would cheat learn it, definitely. Yeah. I would definitely get you to tell me where it is, describe it. I'll make sure you describe it properly.
How you get on, how you get off.
Yeah, and I'd say, okay, I'll take that. And in my appearances, I'll take my chances that I've got it nailed. And if you have a degree of experience, that's not going to be a problem. So we're not talking about 100% cheating, which is Even this is not 100% cheating if you can pass the exams, but I like to have known something. I like to have actually physically been there, and I generally always will when I'm passing. Which, if it's talking about Regent Street, at some stage quite soon I should be passing, and I'll say, oh, I must check that coffee shop Dave mentioned, and I've checked it, and you're just increasing the volume of that is sunk into the memory. Really, that's more than anything that you're doing. And you know as well, when you get asked a point, people don't really seem to realise that they're revising when they don't know a point. So we're doing the sheet together. You've got a point that you know and I don't know it. The fact that it's come across us at this stage and I say I don't know it is step one of me learning it. I actually now know its name, and the chances are when you've got a little bit of experience, I could blag it and say I know its road name as well. And from the fact that you run it, I could treble blag it and say I know its position. Which means that when I do point it, I'm probably going to remember it with some degree of ease. So when you're doing point to point and you come across points you don't know, that's important because it's step one of the revision process of getting it from level 1 to level 20 where you'll know it.
But the 1,500 points you mentioned is a starter. That's a good starter, isn't it? Because the 1,500, if you go out and do 1,500, you're pretty much ready to get going, aren't you?
Well, yeah, most cities in the world, they wouldn't ask you to learn 300, let alone 1,500. We're learning 1,500, get started.
It's a really good number for people looking and thinking, what do I do? But out of the 6,000, say you've been on the knowledge. Let's just say you've been on it 18 months, 2 years, whatever, and you're coming up 28. How many of those points would they already know? The 6,000, they'd know a chunk of them, wouldn't they?
Oh, if they're already on it, they're going to be well into it. I mean, they've got a different strategy. So if you are already on the knowledge 28s, 21s, and you've done a hell of a lot of points, you should definitely push to one side the stuff that is now waste. There's no point in revising that stuff. You're going to be wasting time and energy. You want to be revising exactly what's been used, so you should be dropping less points. You should look at what's not been done by you, and that should become your bike list, and you should get out and start increasing the points that you know within the remainder of what's left. Surprisingly, there is quite a few that you wouldn't know. No matter what degree of experience you've got out of the 6,000, you might have 10,000 points in your repertoire and still find, from the 6,000, you're 1,500 short. You've got 1,500 points to go out and find, which, fine. It does mean that you get to the scenario where you really shouldn't drop a point. You should be able to...
Yeah, by 21s, you think?
Yeah, I think the 6,000 would become... You couldn't do this before, but it will become the future. It will become one continuous rotational list. Whereas before, it was a rotational list that was always growing and moving. Points that were old were falling off the back end. The points that were new were added to the front, and you're trying to stay with it. So you could rotate, but rotating 6,000 is a lot. When it's only 6,000, never growing, never shrinking, then you kind of got a chance. In general, people revise 300 to 600 points a day. Over a 2-week cycle, you should be around all 6,000. When you've been around all 6,000, you should have created a fairly decent sticky list that needs more attention to be revised with. And you should not really, at that level, be dropping a point. You should be able to nail them all.
So if you're doing 1,500 and you start, by the end of 56s, if you're saying, say, 3,000 is a rough figure, that should be, by the time you're 28, you should be 4,500. That's right. And then you're 1,500 short at the end. It works out, doesn't it, for each level?
Yeah.
It does.
This is one of the sad things about the modern knowledge, is that people don't seem to point on a regular drip-fed basis.
Yeah.
And it helps. If you could do the perfect knowledge scenario, you would do Blue Book in the morning, do point-to-point straight afterwards, go out on your bike and have a little look at some stuff and check stuff and get some more points, come home and revise your points. And those 4 things on a daily basis of 4 to 5 days a week is great. But you're going out once a week or once a weekend, you kind of drip feed it in a not so efficient way.
But they haven't always got this weather.
No, but they ain't in Miami.
Winter time, I mean, it did for me, I've got to be honest. I dropped right down. I remember being up around Highgate on a bike. I got home fully dressed and went under the quilt. I had a bobble hat and everything, and I was wrapped up shaking, I was, and just thinking,
That is one of the horrendous things, and I've done exactly the same thing that you're saying. I've probably said it on a podcast before. I was living in Morden, in Surrey, or the last train on the, don't know what, the Northern Line, I think it is on. I can remember doing a point somewhere near Tottenham Police Station, and it started to snow. And it was like, I was probably out at 1 o'clock in the morning, just like being a lunatic. And I remember going home and wanting to cry.
I was early morning.
The pain.
Yeah, it's early. There was hours, isn't it? 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Freezing cold.
Freezing cold.
With that said then, this is what the point I was trying to get to. Would you do more? So when you've got nice weather through the summer,
Oh, always, yeah.
April till October, say, get your points done, more points done. In the winter, you can pull back, so you haven't got to go out as much. You still got to get out there.
Yeah.
But it is hard work in the pouring rain,
Yeah,
freezing cold.
Yeah, you got to pick your days. It's not nice going out. I wouldn't go out in the rain, and I most certainly wouldn't go out in the snow. So
if you was out and it started to rain, would you stay and do the job?
No, I'd start to get home.
Would you?
I think that you got to appreciate the little bits of danger. How many times you see motorbikes driving along nice and straight and just fall over, where they've hit a diesel patch or they've hit something silly. They fall off easily. So it's just not worth the value and the pain and the suffering. Go home, be safe. Let the weather be dry at least. Cold, go out in the cold, just dress up warm.
All these points now, they're all in the Wizard.
Well, we done it on day one of the points for Wiz Points. We had them included in the app. So if you're using Wiz Points, there is a filter. You just tap the filter button, and that will mean that all you're looking at is the points that are in that list currently. Now doing the app again, and you'll be able to have access to both the new Wiz Points and the old Wiz Points. On the new Wiz Points, it will only contain questions and points that are in the list. So it'll go back through history, it'll eliminate any question that's not using points that are in the list. So that's all you've got historically. If you still want the bigger stuff, you can still look at the other Wiz Points app, because that will remain. And it'll also just contain the points that you need to find and learn and revise from in the same way. But Wiz Radius itself, it took us a week after they released the list to get that up to scratch. And that, apart from a few edits that we're continuously doing, that contains exactly what's in the list that you need to find. And they're all on the maps. And the maps, there's a new Wiz Radius coming out that contains new maps, all placed correctly. And that, for me, is going to be the definitive way of doing it. The one problem with pointing, Dave, that made it harder before, that Wiz Radius defeats, is the arrangement. You needed to say, I'm going to visit 50 points. What's the shortest distance I could travel to visit all 50 to get them done in the littlest amount of time? And you'd have to prepare that, which was making a bike list. And the idea behind Wiz Radius was to be ready-made bike list. No prep. You take the app out, you go on map 1, map 2, map 3 geographically, and your bike lists are there. You can visually see the map, so you know which point you should go to second, which point you should go third. Everybody would have a slight variation on what they would choose there, but the idea is there you can get around quickly. And then the other thing is with points, whenever you're learning points, revise every 5 or so points. Don't just do 50 points that day and go home. I do 5 points, and I'll try to nail those with revision while I'm there. Then I do 10, and I will nail all 10 while I'm there. So the revision is growing whilst you're out there. And my last little tip here, actually, this is true of nearly all of us. If you want to point 50 points, just drive up Regent Street and point everything on the left and everything on the right. You'll have 50 points in no time. You will hardly remember any of them. It's easier to remember 50 points in 50 different streets than it is to remember 50 points in one street. So whenever you point things, you're better off of always doing this, like we said, with the 100 times asked. One of the reasons is, go there, point the 5 points in the Strand that are maybe massive, take them with you, but don't go for everything in the Strand, leave them, do that on the second visit. On the second visit, you get to recap the 5 that you've previously visited that pointed. Now you can point a couple more and add them to the repertoire. Don't try to take the whole street. It doesn't work. You're better off pointing a point in Bedford Street, point in the Strand, point in Garrick Street, and moving on from that. And then coming back another day to point another point in Bedford Street, another point in Garrick Street, another point in Strand.
But you're also going from point to point.
Yeah. Which is,
Yeah,
absolutely true. The thing is, you're actually sitting there now. Generally, with a bike list, then it's just a list of points. It was good. All you knew is the road it was in. And the idea would be, don't have a map on the board. You are where you are, and you need to get to Garrick Street. Open your eyes, look at the road, drive your way to Garrick Street as you're learning your way around. That's your development of your understanding of your navigation of the city. Some quite influential people in the business who would say you absolutely must have a map on your board. A map is there to make you not know your way. It's there so you can find your way using the map itself and not engage your brain to think how you would have done it. And we're not tested on our map skills. That's PHV drivers. They're tested on a map skill, I think. We're tested on our verbal skills of how we say we get from A to B. In our heads. Actually, as I said that, it always impresses me with what we achieve. And credit to everybody who's ever done the knowledge. What we achieve outstanding.
and those trying now.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a slog, isn't it? It is a slog, but the reward is great. Look, you two could be in Miami on the beach.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Now we're going paragliding.